Date was January 28th, 2018. Big outdoors guy. So I was goose hunting with two friends of mine. And long story short, a friend of mine, towards the end of the day, we're getting ready to wrap up, decided it would be funny to play around with a loaded gun. I had to get a blood transfusion, almost got my arm amputated. Like, when you think you're gonna die, like, it completely like changes your life perspective.
Despite not receiving news coverage often, unintentional shootings amongst children and adolescents contribute to the current gun violence epidemic. The United States in 2022 so far have seen a total of 275 reported incidents, resulting in 125 deaths and 161 injuries.
Moms Demand Action is the community grassroots organization part of Everytown. There's a survivor network, the Everytown Survivor Network, which is an organization of gun violence survivors. They provide support and community to each other, and they also learn how to advocate for common sense reforms. Moms Demand Action, we're the largest grassroots organization in the country. We are 10 million people strong, larger than the gun lobby now, and we're changing the frame of the conversation. You're using unintentional shootings. That's our language. We're changing the framework of the conversation. It's moving from a conversation about constitutional rights, and it's becoming a conversation about public health crisis. And
Right.
that is the work that we've done. And it's becoming it's how you define the issue.
There are several factors when it comes to unintentional shootings, ranging from the improper storage of a firearm in an unsafe location, leaving a firearm loaded when it is not being used, and forgetting to apply the safety trigger. These factors stem from not educating the youth about weapons.
There's numerous ways that you can store it. It depends. So we'll just go off if it's a pistol, which is most people that get gun permits or for home protection. They would get a pistol, so you could store it in a multitude of ways. They make trigger locks that actually go on either side of the trigger guard and lock in. Obviously unloaded, checking with your finger to the barrel to see, and then applying the trigger lock once it's rendered safe. And then there's the slide in the rear, which is the top mechanism of the gun, gets slid to the rear and locks. It's like a braided cable with some coating on it, goes through and out the slide, so you actually can't make the gun go into battery. Obviously that would have to be unloaded, which is the best way. Most guns are sold with that lock, and it's in the in your user manual it'll state that that's the preferred way to lock it, because you're making sure that there's nothing in the barrel when you do that. The trigger lock is maybe a little older, but that can be used for shotguns and things like that. I won't go into there's the multitude of guns that operate differently, always rendering the gun safe, checking, and making sure, keeping them in a locked safe.
So actually right now I'm supervising, his name is Christian Mullins. He was 16 at the time of his offense. Him and a friend were at his father's house. They found a gun. They didn't know whether or not it was loaded. They were unfamiliar with the gun. From what I understand, they had pulled the trigger a couple times and nothing happened. Unfortunately, the time he pulled it, it was a fatal shot. He shot his friend in the chest. His friend did not survive. He did immediately call for paramedics. He ran out. There was no one home at the time, just him and his friend. He was completely panicked. He called 911. He did the right thing. He stayed on scene until the paramedics came. Unfortunately for him, he got arrested at the time. He was waived to adult court, and he was sentenced, I believe it was to 6 years. It was put away, but there was no security on it at all. He could have what he did. He had access to it.
Was it loaded, when he found it, just ready?
Yes.
What makes it particularly startling is it primarily impacts children. The two kind of buckets of children it impacts are the older teenagers, but then the second most is like the preschoolers and younger, because when you have an unintentional shooting by a child, it's usually the victim is also a child. You've got the shooter who doesn't know what he or she's really doing, and you've got the victim. And so it causes a lot of devastation on a lot of different, in a lot of different ways.
I mean, rule number one, he broke rule number one of gun safety, is treat every gun as if it's loaded. You know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And if that gun was treated properly and in the hands of someone else that, you know, wasn't treating it as if it was like a toy, you know, this never would have happened.
Not treating a gun like a toy, creating policies for safe gun storage. These steps can help to stem unintentional shootings. That's a goal of Moms Demand Action, and they are making progress.
In this previous midterm, we had 125 Moms Demand Action volunteers be elected into office at all levels of government. We had 5,000 gun sense candidates, so people who publicly supported a platform of gun violence prevention as part of their campaign platform. We had 5,000 candidates up for election, and I don't have the number yet on how many of those got elected, but in the past it's been substantial. So I think when you're talking about success, we're seeing that.
Protect our children, and please just take the proper precautions.